We all desire healthy relationships, along with the joy and fulfillment they can bring to our lives. However, today's culture reinforces many characteristics that can weaken and even destroy the many relationships in which we find ourselves. During this series, we will look at 6 of these unhealthy characteristics, beginning with the loss of intimacy in a relationship. God's plan from the beginning was for human relationships to be intimate, transparent, and dynamic, but we drift off course all too often. What can be done to stay on track and not end up isolated and alone? Our reading this morning is from Genesis 3, 1 through 13, from the Message version. The serpent was clever, more clever than any wild animal God had made. He spoke to the woman. Do I understand that God told you not to eat from any tree in the garden? The woman said to the serpent, Not at all. We can eat from the tree in the garden. It's only about the tree in the middle of the garden that God said, Do not eat from it. Do not even touch it, or you'll die. The serpent told the woman, You won't die. God knows that the moment you eat from the tree, you'll see what's really going on. You'll be just like God, knowing everything, ranging all the way from good to evil. When the woman saw that the tree looked like good eating and realized what she would get out of it, she'd know everything. She took and ate the fruit and then gave some to her husband, and he ate. Immediately, the 2 of them did see what's going on, saw themselves naked. They sewed fig leaves together as makeshift clothes for themselves. When they heard the sound of God strolling in the garden in the evening breeze, the man and his wife hid in the trees of the garden, hid from God. God called to the man, Where are you? He said, I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid. God said, Who told you you were naked? Did you eat from the tree I told you not to eat from? The man said, The woman you gave me as a companion. She gave me fruit from the tree, and yes, I ate it. And God said to the woman, What is this that you have done? The serpent seduced me, she said, and I ate. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Thank you, Julia. I appreciate that. Welcome, everyone, to the 1045 worship experience at City on a Hill. I'm Ed Archer, the associate pastor, and Chris kind of gave you a little bit of an intro, and this was something that happened after 9 o'clock. I was asked, well, we really don't know a lot about you, and in a sermon about intimacy, it might be good to know a little bit more. I haven't been up in front of you in quite a while. I've been teaching confirmation, some other things, but Ed Archer, I have a wife, Lisa, 3 kids. I am currently going to seminary, just as Chris said. I'm about 45% of the way through, I think is the numbers now. So I've got a little bit of ways to go, graduating in spring of 2012. And I've been associate pastor here now on a part-time basis for 2 years. I do work a full-time job in a risk management function for an energy company here in Atlanta. And so I'm bivocational, as the Methodist Church would call it. I have 2 jobs. But anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background since that was brought up to me that if you're going to talk about intimacy, why don't you let us know a little bit more about you? If you want to talk to me later on, I am more than happy to spend a few minutes with you. I hope as you came in, when you got your bulletin, you also got your study guide and sermon notes. The sermon notes, just a brief outline. You're going to see that there's a lot of white space today. We kept it simple for a reason, is to give you a little more room if there's something that is said that you're led to write down, something that might help you in one of your relationships. That's going to be up to you and God how that leading happens. On the back is your study guide for the week. If you're a subscriber to Word to the City, you'll get that in your email box every day this week. These are some things that as I researched the sermon, they stuck out. And I thought they might be helpful to expand a little bit on what's going to be said today. If you are not a subscriber, put it on your Connect card that you want to get it that way. And we also use Facebook and Twitter now, too, for that. So you can keep up there, look for City on a Hill. I forget all the actual ones, but if you do a search, I'm sure you can find it. Intimacy lost. Why in the world, number one, would we start a series on when relationships go sour? Because there's so many things that are going on in the world today that get in the way of a good, honest relationship. But whenever people think about relationships, most of the time they only think of marriage. That's usually what everybody's mind goes to first off. But this is to go beyond that. We have a lot of other relationships in our life beyond a marriage relationship. We have relationships with our parents. We have relationships with siblings or extended family. We have relationships with coworkers, with our bosses. We do have our marriage relationships. I'm not making light of that. That's one of many. And most importantly, we have a relationship with God. And sometimes we don't give the attention and focus to any of our relationships that we should be doing. So that's the reason for this, and the reason we wanted to do this was it's a need to return to the original purpose that God designed into us, and that's for authentic relationship. Chris started some of this last week when he did a sermon on our core value of authenticity, the fact of being open and doing things so that other people can truly see who you are. Well, this is one of the key core values that go into the idea of intimacy. Well, let's define intimacy first. What are some things that might help you to understand this idea of intimacy? I'm sure some of you have looked at old pictures and photo albums before. Some of you may have even pulled out yearbooks because high school, and now, of course, elementary and middle school have them now too. But back in the day when I was going to school, it was basically only high school. And you look at the faces and you remember friends. And you might find some notes written in there as you passed them around and people would write in your yearbook. And you'll see something that brings back a remembrance of a time when things were a lot simpler than they are probably for most of us right now. It's a time when we were truly open with each other. We had a best friend. We could share anything in the world with that person, and we knew that it would go no further. And they knew everything about us. Sometimes we open up our photo albums and we find wedding pictures or pictures of a family outing. And we remember a time that was so simple and so innocent. And maybe in the process of time, something has gotten in the way and things aren't as simple anymore. They've gotten a little bit more complex and we start to struggle with issues. This is the type of intimacy and intimacy loss that we're talking about. Facebook and Twitter. Things like that these days. There's all kinds of social networking sites, right? And we're using them now as a form of ministry. Most churches are. But in the case of Twitter, with 140 characters, or I think on Facebook it's 250 characters, what are you doing today? Tell us about yourself. And the whole world, everybody that's connected to you, if you only have it for a private profile or if you have it open, everybody can see whatever you say about yourself. Have you ever called someone that put on their status that they were hurting in some way or there was an issue in their life? Have you ever called them and tried to talk to them one-on-one about it? They don't want to do it because it's too painful to talk about it, but it's okay to just put a little snippet out there. You know, things aren't going so well, but they don't want to talk about it. There's a fear of intimacy, and therefore intimacy is lost. Well, there was a young man, his name was Scott, and this is back from 2003, this article that I found on this. He attended a seminar one day through college, and he leaves, as everyone would when the seminar's done, and he forgot to do something. While he was there, they had him wear name tags that said, "Hi, my name is Scott." And he goes down the street, and he just goes about his day without even thinking about it. And that day, much to his surprise, he met about 20 people that he had no idea who they were. They talked to him. People on the street that had no idea who in the world Scott was stopped and talked to him. And he continued that experiment because it was so much of a change from his day-to-day world. For 900 days, over 3 years basically, or about 3 years, he did this as an experiment all through the rest of his college experience. And he wore a name tag every day that said, "Hi, my name is Scott." And he made more acquaintances and got to know more people in a setting that no one else would have ever thought of. Why? A barrier had been dropped. Everybody knew his name. There's a reason we wear name tags around here. Sometimes it's a little easier for people to come up and approach someone when they know your name. They may not know who you are exactly, but it's a starting point. That barrier's gone because at least you can go up and address them by name, and maybe in some way a connection will form. Instead of intimacy lost, there's a potential for it being found. What about the simple phrase that we have already used? Almost all of us, I bet today, have used it a number of times and didn't give a second thought in the world.